putting unemployed versus being a business owner or independent contractor or even a gig worker. Now, whether you're applying for credit on the personal side or on the business side, the banks are always going to look at the common denominator. The common denominator is you, the business owner. You have to be able to mitigate your own risk because your business can be lined up exactly how the banks want to see it. But if you're putting on the application that you're unemployed or that you're collecting a social security pension or that maybe you're retired, even though you're running a business, that's not necessarily going to shake up in your best interest. So what we've noticed, again, speaking to these bankers, is that if you put that you are an independent contractor or the CEO or the founder in your business, that's going to serve you far better. But taking it to the next level, putting that you are the employee of your company is really, and again, you have to be able to prove this, of course, if you're giving yourself payroll, the whole nine yard, right? But putting yourself as the employee on the application and then putting the name of your company, the business itself, helps create that separation between, okay, the business is its own standalone entity and the person is its standalone entity. And then that way it comes together as a nice solid application versus, again, you putting information on there that's going to be contradictory to what the business is trying to do in and of itself. Now, this is a big one right here, and the bankers actually warned about this because they're also starting to catch on to this. I'm gonna let you know more so how they underwrite this. Putting bigger numbers with your income or with the business revenues in hopes to get approved for higher credit limits actually raises a red flag with the bank altogether and can potentially get your account shut down altogether. Now, you might be wondering, Irv, how can they actually know based off of stated income how much I'm actually putting on there? I'm not showing any tax returns. And I also saw in a video somewhere that I can put whatever number I want. They're not necessarily going to verify it. And you are 100% accurate, but here's how they actually do it. Number one, you want to be 100% truthful with the numbers that you're reporting for your business. And number two, there's a complete scoring algorithm for how they're actually basing whether or not the figure that you're using in terms of revenue is going to be congruent with the business that you're applying for. They're taking a look at the industry code used for the business, the zip code that you're applying from, that's a big one, the age of the business put on the application, how the business actually generates revenue, how much cash reserves the business has in applying for that bank and at other banks. And also, they're also taking a look at the number of employees that you're putting on the application. So here's how this shakes up in a real world example. Let's say that I have a 1 to 3 year old business and I put that I'm generating, let's say, $250,000 a year, but I live in a small town with right around 50,000 people. The likelihood of me remaining in business is maybe a lot shorter of a lifespan of me remaining in business because maybe I have less clients in that town. And again, the amount of money that I can maybe make in that town is going to be totally different from, again, that same business that's maybe now 8 or 9 years old, but I'm in the heart of Los Angeles. So this is why it's important of the zip code that you're using, of where you're applying from, the amount that you're putting on there, and also the industry, because there's also industry averages that they're playing off of. But I want to take this a step further because remember, 99.9% of the time, you're going to be personally guaranteeing this debt. And so they're going to be taking a look at your personal credit lines. So if you put on there, hey, we're going to be generating $500,000 a year, it's your first year in business. Banks aren't dumb. They're going to take a look at, wait a minute, what credit lines do you currently have? Okay, your highest credit line is, let's say, $2,000. The vehicle that you got approved for, which let's say an $8,000 vehicle, that's not a big credit limit. And so banks are going to take a look at that information and then they're going to make a guesstimated decision on the spot right there. If that number is way off from where the average typically is based off of a tier system, bam, it's getting kicked back altogether. And in some instances, if they feel like the person is fishing for credit, they could just blacklist them from the bank altogether. You want to be very watchful of this, which is why I'm giving you this information. Another way put, banks are going to look at both the macro and the microeconomics of each and every single applicant. Next up, you have applying for too many accounts too quickly. Now, this applies to both personal and business accounts. Now, banks are going to be able to take a look at how many accounts you apply for, both internally and externally. Most of the time, they're able to see this off of two metrics. Number one is they're able to see this off of the hard inquiries that are reporting on your credit. But the second way that they're able to see this is you have what's known as internal underwriting, and then you have what's known as universal or external underwriting. Here's what that means. If you are applying at Chase and you go to Bank of America Each of them have their own underwriting systems, but each of them can tell whether you applied for that bank or not for a credit line based off of the hard inquiry. That's on the external underwriting. Internal network underwriting works a little bit differently because sometimes banks all underwrite using the same third-party company. Some of them could be TCM, some of them could be using the FNBO network, some of them can be using Elon Financial Services. So what that means is you may think that you are applying at 3 or 4 different banks, but you're still landing inside of that same application pool. And so if you're wondering, man, I applied at 4 different banks, I got denied instantly, you have to ask and you have to find out, okay, is this the same network or are they being underwritten by third-party companies? Number 8, and this was personally a big aha moment for me because I always wondered about this and, I always had my conspiracies about what to put, but there are certain answers that are going to trigger kind of like the red flags and the bells are going to go off with the bank. And so if you've ever seen an application where, it's going to ask you, do you want to pay off debts? Do you want to debt consolidate? Is it a big future purchase? Are you remodeling your home? Those are questions, and it's almost like tripwire. Anytime someone's ever put, I want to pay off a student loan with this loan, or I want to consolidate my debt, I've always seen that as a tripwire. You'll usually get an automatic denial, or let's say if you could have gotten approved for 30K, you get approved for 5K. So upon speaking to some of these lenders, they've noticed, or at least I've noticed from kind of like reading in between the lines, if you're going to put that you're going to be making a big future purchase using those funds, then that usually edges your way into getting an approval versus using one of the other methods, which again, if you're using maybe a personal loan or even on the business loan to debt consolidate, that to me is tripwire written all over it. I usually advise my clients, you're gonna have some better options if you just go to a debt consolidation company, if that's what you wanna do. But putting that on those applications, it's just a dead deal.